Welcome to Chapter 11, Section 3. In Section 2, we looked at bonds. Bonds are a way of making money or investing money by loaning it out, whether you're loaning it to the federal government, the state of California, whether you're loaning it to a corporation. A bond is a loan. But one of the best ways to make money or to invest your money is to invest in the stock market. And the stock market means you're investing in shares of stock. Okay? What is a share of stock? A share of stock means that you are a part owner of that company. If you remember way back in Chapter 5, we opened up Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand. I am the only owner of Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand. But if I wanted to share ownership in my company, I would divide my company up into shares of stock. Say there are 100 shares. I own all 100 portions of the company. I own 100% of the company. But I might decide to sell you some of those shares. Maybe you buy 10 of my shares. If you buy 10 of the shares from me, at whatever price I charge you, you now own 1/10 of the company because you own 10 of the 100 shares. And that's what owning shares of stock means, that you're actually an owner, a part owner of that company. Okay? My mother owns shares of stock in Chevron, so she's a part owner of Chevron Corporation. Okay? And how do you make money by investing in stocks? We've all seen the movies and people make lots of money in the stock market. How do you make money in the stock market? Well, when you buy those shares, you have to buy them at a certain price. And when they're first sold, the owner of the company, the original owner of the company, they decide how much they want to sell those shares for. So let's say I decide I'm going to sell them to you for $10 a share. Okay? So I've decided I'm going to sell them to you. So you're going to buy 10 shares at $10 each. It's going to cost you $100 to become a part owner of my company. Okay? Well, why would you want to do that? Well, hopefully Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand is going to continue to be profitable and the value of my shares is going to go up. Let's say that in a couple of years, my company's been very profitable, and so people want my shares of stock. And so because of the demand for those shares, they've gone up to $15 a share. The price has gone up to $15 a share. If you then sold your shares of stock, you would make $5. Since you bought them at $10 and you sold them at $15 a share, you would make $5 per share. This is known as a capital gain. And that's the one that you see in the movies. People are making money in the stock market by buying low and selling at a higher price. Okay? That's a capital gain. Okay? But in order for you to realize a capital gain, in order for you to get that $5 a share, you now have to give up ownership in Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand. And why did you buy into that hamburger stand in the first place? Because you thought it was going to be a successful company. Okay? If the company is successful, if it's making profits, who should get those profits? Okay? Well, if I own Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand and we make money, then I should get the profits. But you too are a partial owner. You now own 10 shares and I own 90 shares. Okay? So shouldn't we split those profits up? The other way to make money in the stock market is through something called dividends. Dividends are a distribution of the company's profits. So let's say that Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand makes money this year. Okay? If we made only $100, okay, that $100 should be split at $1 per share as a dividend. So while you're holding on to that stock and the company is profitable and they distribute those profits in the form of dividends, you're going to get a check. Since you own 10 shares, you're going to get a check for $10 this year. And then next year, you'll continue to get dividends, hopefully. Okay. Meanwhile, the company's shares are hopefully appreciating or going up in value. So there's actually two ways to make money in the stock market. Buy low and sell high, or buy and hold on to it and collect dividends. How much can you collect in dividends? Okay. Well, my mom owns, I sold you shares of stock in Chevron Corporation. Okay. And last year, I think this year the dividend is $5.08 per share. Okay. So you multiply that times how many shares she has. Okay. And she has a lot of shares. She happened to inherit them from my grandmother, who inherited them from someone else. But that's 1,400 shares. 1,400 shares that my mom owns. So this year she'll make $5 times 1,400. That's over $7,000 in dividends by buying and holding on to the stock. So why do you want to invest in the stock market? Because you can buy it at a low price and then later on sell it at a higher price. And while you're holding on to it, that's called the capital gain. But while you're holding on to it, you can collect dividends. If that company is profitable, they should be distributing those profits out to the shareholders. And as an owner of the stock, you're called a shareholder or a stockholder because you own shares of stock. They mean the same thing. Okay? So how do you go about buying shares of stock, and what determines the price of those shares? Well, first of all, you can go through a stockbroker. That's the old-fashioned way to do it. We would contact an individual who worked for a company, and they specialized in buying and selling stocks. Just like a real estate agent specializes in selling real estate or houses, a stockbroker would specialize in buying and selling stock. And you would pay that stockbroker a fee. Well, today, you don't have to necessarily use a stockbroker because of the internet. You might have heard of the online companies like E-Trade, where you can actually open up your own account and buy the shares yourself, and you don't have to pay as big a commission. Okay? But on the downside, you don't get the expertise of that stockbroker. In the old days, when you used a stockbroker, you were getting his or her expertise to tell you, hey, that's a good idea, or hey, that's not a good idea. If you're investing on your own through the online brokers like E-Trade, you're not going to get any advice like that. And what determines the price that you will pay for that stock? Well, a price of anything is determined by supply and demand. As the demand for stocks goes up, then the price goes up. If the demand goes down, then the price goes down. And what determines the demand oftentimes is, what do you foresee, or what do investors foresee for that company going forward? For example, you might think that Amazon is going to do well going forward as we learn to have more of our things delivered so we don't have to go into stores. Amazon, you think, might become a more profitable company, then that stock price is going to rise. Restaurant stocks, on the other hand, probably are not going to do as well going forward. And so those stock prices would probably be declining. Okay? The goal is, of course, to buy stocks at the low price and sell them at a higher price. Okay? The goal is to find those stocks that are at a low price that you're pretty sure are going to go up. The problem is everybody else is trying to do the same thing. Every investor in the market is trying to do the exact same thing. They're trying to find the stocks that are mispriced, that really should be selling at a higher price, that are definitely going to go up in value. Okay? And so the book says it's very difficult to outsmart everybody else. They say that there's this thing called the efficient market hypothesis that says that stocks are always priced correctly. Given what we know about those companies today, everybody's looking into the same information. They're going to come to the same conclusions. And so stocks are always priced appropriately. So what this means for you as an investor is that you want to use diversification. instead of trying to outsmart and buying the stocks that you know are going to go up, okay, you're better off to spread your investments out. That's what diversification means. To instead of investing in 1 or 2 or 3 companies, invest in 100 different companies. If you invest in 100 different companies, you're going to be right about some. They're going to be at a low price and they're going to go up in value. You're going to be wrong about others. They're going to be at a low price and they're going to go even lower. And you're going to be in the middle about some. They're going to stay about the same price. Okay? Well, how does that help you make money in the stock market? Well, we know that the market since 1900, we said, has earned on average 10% a year. Now, that doesn't mean every stock goes up 10%. Some go up more than that, some go up 10%, some go up less than 10%, and some go down in value. But if you spread your investments out over 100 different stocks, you're going to be closer to that average. Certainly, if you pick 1 or 2 stocks, you can make a lot of money. If you pick Disney stock or Amazon or Apple stock, okay, in the beginning, you certainly could make a tremendous amount of money. But if you only choose 1 stock, you better be right about that one. What if you invested in J.C. Penney stock, who just went bankrupt? Or you invested in J. Crew stock, and they went bankrupt? If you pick just one, you better be right. But if you're willing to spread your investments out, then you're going to be able to be successful in the stock market. In fact, people are always talking about how risky the stock market is. The stock market is not risky if you'll do 2 things. If you'll invest consistently for a long period of time. We did that back in section 1. The market's going to go up and it's going to go down and up and down, but if you're willing to invest for a long period of time and you're willing to invest in a lot of different stocks, then you're going to make money in the stock market. It's been proven that way for well over 120 years. I've been giving you just the numbers for the last 120 years. And why am I confident in saying that? Because if you're investing in a lot of different companies in the stock market, you're investing in companies that are producing goods and services to be sold here in the United States. And as long as there are people in the United States buying goods and services, businesses are going to make money. And if you're willing to spread your investments out over a lot of those different companies, and you're willing to do it for a long period of time, you are going to make money in the stock market. Diversification is difficult for many small investors. How do you invest in lots of different companies? Well, instead of trying to invest in lots of different companies, there's another way to get that diversification, and that's to invest in mutual funds. Mutual means together, so a mutual fund is going to pool together or combine together a lot of investors' money. In fact, this is the way I invest in the stock market. I do not buy individual stocks. I invest in mutual funds. Me and a bunch of other investors pool our money into a large pot of money, and then because there's so many of us, we can diversify into lots of different stocks. Okay? One of the mutual funds that I own is a Franklin Templeton mutual fund. So me and a bunch of other investors invest in this mutual fund, and we're pooling our money. And then the company, Franklin Templeton, they hire some smart person to make the investment choices for us. They decide which stocks we should be buying in this mutual fund. So again, me and a bunch of other investors pool our money, and we buy stock in the mutual fund. The price of the shares is called the NAV. That's the share price of the mutual fund. Okay? So again, just like I would be investing in individual stocks, maybe the NAV or the share price is $10 per share. I invest $100, so I get 100 shares, and month after month I'm investing in this mutual fund, and as the value of the stocks inside the mutual fund grows, then the share price of the mutual fund also grows. So maybe when I was beginning my investing, I was buying those shares at $10 a share. And because the mutual fund has been investing in a lot of different stocks, it's now worth $15 a share. And again, I can make money. The mutual funds also pay out dividends to you. Okay? So one of the best ways for an individual investor to invest in the stock market is to use mutual funds. Okay? There are three big advantages to mutual funds. Number one, and most important, you're getting that diversification. You're pooling your money, so you're investing not in one or two stocks, but in lots of different stocks. In fact, the most popular mutual fund out there invests in 500 different stocks. Okay? It's called the Vanguard 500. Okay, not only are you getting diversification by investing in lots of different companies, you're also getting professional management. You're getting some individual to help make the investment decisions for you. Most of us don't have the expertise to decide which stocks to buy, so we let someone who does have that expertise. We hire them as part of the mutual fund. We hire them to make those decisions for us. And the last thing that mutual funds allow you to invest smaller sums of money. It used to be if you were investing in the stock market, you needed thousands of dollars. Now you can invest in mutual funds for as little as $50 a month. Okay? So mutual funds are the best way for individuals to invest in the stock market. Okay? What if you did want to invest in stocks as an individual? Well, then you would go through a stockbroker. Where does the stockbroker, whether it's an online broker like E-Trade or a human being, where do they go about buying the shares of stock? Okay? Well, stocks are bought and sold on a stock exchange. And stock exchanges exist all over the world. There are multiple stock exchanges in the United States. Okay? The most famous in all the world is the New York Stock Exchange. The New York Stock Exchange is located on Wall Street. It's an actual building on Wall Street in New York City, in the borough of Manhattan. Okay? You can go and visit the New York Stock Exchange. It's located on Wall Street. And every day since the 1800s, people have been meeting face-to-face at the New York Stock Exchange and buying and selling stocks. Now, you and I can't buy stocks on the stock exchange. We would go through the stockbroker, and the stockbroker would go through what they call a trader that works for his company. So if you have a Merrill Lynch stock brokerage account, Merrill Lynch has traders on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And every day, Monday through Friday, every day but the holidays and weekends, they're face-to-face buying and selling stocks. And that's the ones you've seen on in the movies or on television, and they're wild and crazy screaming and hand gestures. They're buying and selling stocks every day on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, the New York Stock Exchange is the world's most famous stock exchange. It has only the biggest and the best companies. The Apples and the Home Depots and the Walmarts and the Fords and the Bank of Americas. Smaller companies are not traded on the New York Stock Exchange. This is only for the biggest and the best. Where are the other ones traded? The smaller companies are traded on what we call the over-the-counter market. The most famous of the over-the-counter markets you may have heard of, this is pronounced NASDAQ. It stands for National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotations. But NASDAQ is not a physical location. The over-the-counter market is not an actual building. It's a computerized network. Someone types in over here, I would like to buy shares of stock in Mr. Ward's hamburger stand. Somebody else types in over here, okay, I'm willing to sell you those shares. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's basically how it works. And it's all done electronically. The NASDAQ, or the over-the-counter market, has way more stocks. The New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street has only about 2,500 different companies. But again, these are the biggest and the best. Where are all the other companies? The Mr. Ward's Hamburger Stand and the Johnny's Auto Towing and U-Haul Storage. Well, they're traded through the over-the-counter market. Again, not an actual location. Okay. So the stock market, we hear oftentimes that the stock market is up or the stock market is down. How do we know if the stock market is up or down? Because every day some shares of stock are going up, some are going down, some are going up a little, some are going down a little, some are going up a lot. How do we measure how the stock market is doing? Well, the most famous measure of stock market performance is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was created way back, I believe, in the 1800s, maybe it was the early 1900s, by Mr. Dow and Mr. Jones. They actually also founded the Wall Street Journal newspaper. But Mr. Dow and Mr. Jones said, we want to come up with a way of measuring how the stock market is doing. And so they simply added up the stock price of these 11 different companies. And if those stock prices went up, then they said the Dow Jones average went up. And if they went down, then the Dow Jones average went down. Well, today it's more complicated. Instead of using 11 companies, there are only 30 companies, though, that make up the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The biggest and the best companies: Home Depot, Walmart, IBM, Verizon, Bank of America, Nike, Visa, okay? The best companies in the world. They took the stock price of these 30 companies, they put them into a formula, and they come up with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And earlier today, it was at about 22,500. Okay? Before the pandemic, it was at about 27, not dollars, I shouldn't say dollars. 22,500 was the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Before the pandemic began, it was had reached a high of about 27,000. So the market is down about 4,500 points. The market is down about 15-20% from what it was earlier in the year. Now that was the record high. The record high was 27,000, in the 27,000 range. Okay? The Dow Jones Industrial Average is the most famous measurement of stock market performance. But there's another one called the S&P 500. The S&P 500 has, well, 500 companies that make up its average. And it's considered a little bit better measure. Even though this is the most popular measure, it only has 30 companies, because this one has 500 companies. It's a better measurement. It's a more accurate measurement of how the stock market is doing. And in fact, the S&P 500, when I told you that the stock market has gone up 10% a year, that's the S&P 500. Since 1900, the stocks in the S&P 500 have gone up on average 10% a year. Again, it's not a straight 10%. It's an up and a down and up and down and up and down and up and down. But since 1900, the market has gone up 10% a year. So this is a super fast way of going through the stock market. I wish we had more time, but you probably turned off the video a while back. I'm glad that you're still here. Two other things I do want to mention real quick: the bull market and a bear market. You might have heard those terms: bull market and bear market. A bull market is when the stock market is going up. In fact, that's why there's a big bull outside the stock exchange in the street. There's a statue of a bull in the street right outside the stock exchange, because that means the stocks are going up. When stock prices are going up, that's called a bull market. When stock prices go down at least 20%, like they have, we call that a bear market. So right now we're in a bear market because the market has been going down. All right, that covers section 3 in the text. We have about one video left, and it's a very, very important one. Please watch it. It's on retirement planning. We're going to learn about 401ks and IRAs.